everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. We are covering Erik ten Hag's press conference previewing the game towards Luton. Another Thursday press conference caught us off guard again. Maybe it's going to become a regular thing, but Luton is an absolutely massive game on Sunday. All the work we put in against Villa, all the work we put in against Wolves, that last minute winner, the West Ham game, it all goes out the window if we lose against Luton on Sunday. And it is a possibility. Luton, it's a tough place to go. People have stumbled over the finish line there this season. It's been a tough place to go for a lot of teams. They're on a really good run right now with Rob Edwards. They had a hiccup in the result against Sheffield United last week, but Luton are a good side. We've got to win this game, and Erik ten Hag has been talking injuries, more injury concerns on Luke Shaw, also Malacia and Mount. Will they even be back this season? It just seems like their injuries keep being extended. We've got updates on that. Erik ten Hag talking about the potential of Dan Ashworth, more appointments at Manchester United. What's going to happen? Does he have any say in these appointments? A lot of stuff to get into in this press conference. And not only that, everyone, get your comments in as well, is you've got so much news coming out around more appointments that INEOS and Sir Jim are looking to make. I mean, there's news coming out left, right and centre on different appointments. Apparently an executive's being looked at to oversee the recruitment at Nice and Manchester United in cohesion to build squads across both of the teams. Are Nice going to become our feeder club? Would you want that to happen? Is that a good model for us to have? Also, other appointments as well being talked about. Somebody that used to work at City and currently at Southampton. We'll get into that. But a lot happening. Sir Jim can't be stopped. He's on a rampage of trying to steal everyone's employees. But I was speaking to my dad about this on this morning, and we were saying to get to the best, you have to hire the best in class and have the best people in them roles. And I'm glad that Sir Jim and INEOS have grasped that from early doors. And it just feels strange being a United fan, seeing all of these positive news stories come out about appointments by really reliable journalists such as David Ornstein. But we'll get into it. Could be a little bit of a blow in terms of Dan Ashworth though, because apparently Man United are a bit unsure whether to pay that compensation and wait for him. I mean, I'll get my thoughts on that, but I wouldn't be waiting around, that's for sure. I'd be paying it. But let's get into the press conference first. So let's get started on Luke Shaw's injury, because that's the main one, looking towards Luton. The main thing is we need Luke Shaw back fit. The reason we need Luke Shaw back fit, the big reason we need Luke Shaw back fit, is because we literally don't have any other fullbacks available. So let's get into the injuries. On Luke Shaw's injury, Erik ten Hag said Luke is doubtful for the weekend, but we are positive he can make it. He came out as precaution. It was the right direction. We will work until Sunday. So Luke is doubtful. To me, that's not a good sign. He says we're positive he can make it, but I mean, we heard Mason Mount and Tyrell Malacia were going to be back like last month, and it's been another extension on their injuries. So sometimes we get told that players are going to be back, and then it just goes on for more weeks and more weeks and more weeks. I hope with Luke Shaw he is back. It's super, super important he is. Okay, yeah, Lindelof came in and did a job at the Aston Villa game, but I think that could have cost us the game. And that's no disrespect to Lindelof. He's not a left-back. He's a centre-back being asked to play left-back. And Bailey was absolutely doing him, let's be honest. And Emery, I think, made a massive mistake in taking Bailey off. So we've got a situation against Luton. Okay, yeah, maybe they don't have the likes of a Leon Bailey, but they've got threats all over the pitch, Luton. And every game in the Premier League is a tough game. So we need a left-back playing left-back. I think it's so important Luke Shaw's back. And it does beg the question, even though I wasn't Reguilon's biggest fan, why did we send him back to Spurs? Why did we do that? Malacia is not fit. Wan-Bissaka's injured for weeks, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Dallow's the only one that's been consistently fit, and God forbid, touch wood. I mean, pray every night that anything happens to him, because he's been so consistent for us. So we've just got to be really careful. This fullback situation, that it doesn't spiral out of control. We've really got to be careful. I mean, they have quick, pacey wingers, Luton, that can do stuff against our players. Lindelof has already had a tough time against Leon Bailey. We don't need a centre-back playing left-back, but we're going to have to if Luke Shaw isn't fit. And we've put ourselves in a poor position there, and I think it's bad planning from Manchester United, and I think they took a risk, and the risk has backfired. We should have kept Reguilon on just to have a body there, just to have an actual left-back that knows how to play left-back. And you know what, at least with Reguilon, okay, he wasn't the most defensively capable, and I don't think he's someone I would want playing long term for us, because I just don't think he's good enough. But he had a heart of gold. He did the running, he did the leg work. He showed passion for the club, and he could play that position. Like, he was a left back. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how Ten Hag deals with this. We don't even have Martinez, who could potentially have been used at left back. He's done it before in his career. Your next port of call is Lindelof or Amrabat, and both of them we've seen aren't good left backs, but they're not full backs. So it's one of them situations. Then you ask, could you play Dalot as left back and move Wan-Bissaka to right back? Well, we've got injury updates on this, and no, we can't, because Wan-Bissaka's injured, and he's going to be a few weeks, Erik Ten Hag says. So Ten Hag speaks about Wan-Bissaka's injury, Mount's injury, and Malacia's injury. He said Aaron Wan-Bissaka will take some weeks because he picked up another injury in training last week. Mason and Tyrell will take some more weeks. He had setbacks during his rehab process. It takes too long. It's bad for him. It's bad for us. But now we have reached a turning point. It's positive, and he will return soon on the pitch. It won't take long before he's returning in team training. So again, Mount and Malacia, like, how long? Like, this is crazy. And you just do have to look at the medical department here. Why are we in situations continuously where we're bringing players back and they're having setbacks in training? We're bringing players back and they're immediately getting injured again. I mean, Martinez, we've had it with his foot injury. We brought him back too soon, got injured, kept him out. Mount, you know, not everyone was excited, but a lot of people were excited for this signing, new number 7. He was one of Erik Ten Hag's or the club's main priorities in the summer. He played a few games for us, and he's been injured ever since. And he's been back in training, and then he's been out. He's been back in training, he's been out, and it just feels like with Mason Mount, is he ever going to come back? I mean, we got told he could have been back for the Wolves game like quite a few weeks ago, and now it's going to be another few weeks. Tyrell Malacia got injured in pre-season. We don't even know really what his injury is. We know it was something to do with his knee, I think. I think he had surgery on it, and he's still going to be more weeks, Erik Ten Hag says. You know, not even team training yet. He got injured in pre-season. Like, this is months upon months upon months. And it's a big worry, because look at Jurrien Timber. He got an ACL injury at the start of the season for Arsenal, and he's probably going to return before Mount and Malacia. Like, these have been serious injuries, and it really does worry me. It really does worry me. Is it just a complete fluke, and it's really unfortunate that we've had 2 major bad injuries at the same time, or 3 even, because you have to take Martinez in there with that. Casemiro had quite a lengthy one as well. Or is it something going wrong behind the scenes in the medical department? Because, okay, yeah, clubs have injuries, but Man United have had Mount with a long-term injury, Malacia with a massive long-term injury, Casemiro had a long-term injury. Casemiro isn't injury-prone. He's been fit across his whole career. Hopefully he comes back fit and stays fit now. Luke Shaw keeps getting injured. Like, is it something that we need to look at? And I think this, if I'm Sir Jim and INEOS, this is definitely something that I want to address. But how long these players have been injured, it is a joke at this point. Like, we need to get them back. Malacia is super important. He's Luke Shaw's backup. You know, everyone was impressed with Malacia last season. Okay, yeah, he's not Luke Shaw, but, you know, he was a pit bull. He'd get into the tackles. He had excellent games against City, against Liverpool, and we wanted to see how he'd develop. We've barely even seen. I forgot he was a United player this season. You know, and not only that, I would have been able to deal with it if we started Reguilon, but we sent Reguilon back being told that Malacia was nearly back, and now he's not. It's more weeks. So it's just frustrating. It really is frustrating. Mount's another one who I think we could use and could utilise. I still think he's a good player. Barely even seen him this season. It is frustrating. It really is frustrating. But get your comments in the chat, and we'll bring them in. We'll bring them in for you. Neon says Malacia had to have another surgery in December. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for him too. You never wish a player injured. I think Malacia had potential. He looked good at points last season. And I feel like it's just set back his Man United career a little bit. I mean, remember when people were calling him potentially the next Patrice Evra? I mean, that was a massive stretch. But Malacia looked good, and he had good defensive capabilities. He needed to work on going forward, but defensively, he looked quite solid, and that's what we need. That is exactly what we need. We needed Malacia against Leon Bailey. we need Malacia in them in games, because Lindelof, he's a centre-back, he's not a left-back. He's not going to be able to deal with a tricky winger. Malacia showed he could. He dealt with Salah, he dealt with Mahrez. Like, we needed him back, but there are the updates on the injuries, and it just is. It is massively frustrating. GDT says, what is Mount's injury exactly? I think we got told it was an ankle injury, but again, Ten Hag doesn't really say too much on what the injuries are. And with Wan-Bissaka, we don't even know what it is. All we know it's something to do with his leg. The rest of it, he said it was personal. So it's frustrating. A lot of people talking about Harry Armas. I get it, because he looks like such a talent, and I can understand why Alvaro Fernandez made way a little bit now, even though I really do rate Alvaro, and we could have done with him right now, because if you're making room in the youth setup for players coming through, it brings the route through for Harry Armas. But we could have done with Alvaro Fernandez right now. He's another player we could have done with. But do you really want to throw in a 16-year-old? Harry Armas is 16. He's promising. He looks excellent. He's a great profile. But do you really want to throw in a 16-year-old in an away game in the Premier League at Kenilworth Road? Do you really want to do that? It shouldn't happen. Harry Armas should be brought in through being nurtured into the first team on the pathway that Erik Ten Hag has planned for him. He shouldn't just be thrown into a game at Kenilworth Road that we massively need to win in an away game with a hostile atmosphere. It's the wrong decision in my opinion. So I would, unfortunately, even though I don't think Lindelof or Amrabat are good fullbacks, I would have to pick them over Armas at this moment, just because I don't want to risk, his development. You want to develop him in the right way. People saying it's Luton. Guys, have you not watched Luton this season? Luton have been good. And okay, yeah, they're towards the bottom of the Premier League, but the Premier League's stiff competition. Rob Edwards is doing a good job. Arsenal were on a knife's edge at Kenilworth Road for a long time, up until the last, I think they won it in the 90th minute, if I'm not wrong. And Arsenal have done great this season. It's a tough place to go, Luton. It really is, and they've been good. So I don't think we should underestimate them at all. I mean, this is a team, we struggled to get over the line at Sheffield United. We only just won that 2-1 and we made a meal of it. So we've got to be careful in underestimating teams. And this moves on to Ten Hag's next point. He said on playing at Kenilworth Road, he said he got asked on what he feels like it'll be like playing at Kenilworth Road, which is Luton's home ground. Cracking ground, by the way, like the way that you have to go through someone's house to kind of get into it in the away end. He said, is the pitch smaller? Is it 11 versus 11? No referees are coming, basically taking the mick there. Erik, bit of a joke, bit of a laugh and a joke. He says, every ambience is different, which is what I wanted to say. We have to deal with the circumstances, and it's about playing football. We have to make it our game. It doesn't matter who you face. We respect every opponent. We are not in a position to underestimate any opponent. I have a lot of respect for this team, and we have to play our best football. And that's exactly how we should be going into it. Like I just said, we would be fools to underestimate Luton. They've had some good games this season. They've had some good results. I mean, that 4-4 against Newcastle was a cracker. They can score goals. Ross Barkley has been one of the signings of the season for me. Ross Barkley has been brilliant in their midfield. They've got players that can hurt us. Okay, yeah, we are the better team. But they're a team that can cause us problems, and we have to respect that, because all the work we put in against Villa away, all the work we put in against Wolves away, all the work we did at home against West Ham will go out the window if we let a result like this slip, and we can't let it slip. He also spoke, Ten Hag, a little bit about how much we have to have respect for everyone, and he needs to drill that into the players, because sometimes I feel like Man United, they'll have a good couple wins and then we'll go into a game that's deemed as one of our easier games and the mask starts to slip. We need to make sure we are on our best A game, and every game is a cup final, including this one. He then gets asked, and this is the good stuff, he gets asked about the arrival of new staff and the potential arrival of Dan Ashworth. Ten Hag kind of avoids it a little bit. He says, I am happy now in this construction, and when things change, they will tell me. But in a club like Manchester United, you can't do everything alone. It is impossible. You need to have very good people around you. I'm happy, but a club like Manchester United also have to look for better. Never satisfied. Good is not good enough. Always looking for better and always trying every day to do better than the day before. And that's exactly what you want to hear from your manager. And I think that's exactly what Ten Hag's been feeling inside since he came at Manchester United. I think he walked into Manchester United and thought, oh my gosh, why is there not the ambition there that should be there at this club? Why are we not striving to do better every day behind the scenes? Like I said, Ten Hag, he can't do a one-man job. And he speaks about it there. It's not one person can do everything. Ten Hag, since he came into Manchester United, has been a coach, a manager, basically a director of football, a scout. Like, he's been doing everything. And that's why a lot of his recruitment hasn't been successful. Some of it has, but not all of it has been. And he needs people around him. He needs a team around him. When he says, you have to have good people around you, that's why Sir Jim and INEOS want to build Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth, other appointments that I'm going to get into in a second, of more people looking to come in. You know, a head of recruitment, giving Dan Ashworth the keys to build a recruitment team. It's all about the team of people you have around you. It's not a one-man job. It's a team effort. And that's why it's amazing that Sir Jim has recognised early days, and what we've been saying for years upon end, that United need to get best in class in the positions behind the scenes. And we're finally starting to do it, and it's exciting time. And I hope Ten Hag gets the opportunity to do it, because I don't know if you saw, but before, in the Mail, there was a report put out that both Liverpool and Manchester United are admirers of Roberto De Zerbi from Brighton. That both Liverpool and Manchester United are admirers of De Zerbi, and I thought that's strange because Ten Hag's our manager, and I'm under the impression that Ten Hag will go into next season as the manager if he continues the way that we've started the year off, and I hope that he does do that. So for Ten Hag, it's still a situation with them reports coming out of he is walking a tightrope from now until the end of the season because of how poor the first start of the season was, and he needs to do everything to impress, just like everyone behind the scenes does, the medical department, everyone needs to, and they will not hesitate to make a change, Sir Jim and Dave Brailsford. That's becoming very clear. I mean, I put out this video on Twitter. If you want to go and check my Twitter, it's at Beth MUFC, and it was like the Lady Gaga interview that went viral from ages ago, and it was like bus, club, another club, no sleep. And that's like Sir Jim and Dave Brailsford now. They're going round, they're making moves, they're making appointments, and if Ten Hag isn't good enough, I'm sure they won't hesitate to change that. But what we can gather is that they've realised, and they'll still be doing their audits and doing their evaluations behind the scenes, they've realised that it's not just on Ten Hag. It's not a one-man thing. Behind the scenes needs a clear out. It needs revolutionising. It needs mass brutality in order to get the right people in and get rid of people that haven't been good enough. And I hope that Ten Hag gets the opportunity to work as part of that team. I really, really do. The Grouse says, your girl is absolutely vibing, spitting facts. Thank you very much for your super chat. I really appreciate that. Also, Ten Hag speaks about on working with others. This is really important as well, talking about a philosophy and a long-term vision. He says, I think it's very important you are on the same page about a football philosophy, about football tactics, about the profiles of players you need in the team. So it's very important to have very good communication so you get the right players. It's one of the most important factors to develop a good team, that you have the right players but also the right characters. That means that you have to do the right work and be aligned, and it's a long process to get the players in. All of this is a tick that Ten Hag's saying, because obviously there is there's a potential scenario that you bring in Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada, and you bring in the recruitment team, and Ten Hag lays down his plans and what he wants, and the people that Sir Jim have hired have a completely different vision, and it doesn't align. When Ten Hag walked into Manchester United, Man United had a list of potential targets. Mark was talking about this on the morning show, and Ten Hag didn't want any of them. He said, no, I don't want this player for centre-back. I want Jurrien Timber or Lisandro Martinez. No, I don't want this player. No, I want Anthony. I want De Jong. That's how it kind of went. And that's this summer as well. I think Ten Hag obviously initially wanted Harry Kane, then he was told that can't happen. It went on to Rasmus Højlund, and you look at players that we've targeted, Ten Hag's got a massive footprint on them. But it wasn't to do with Man United's coach, backroom staff. the backroom staff at Man United originally didn't want Anthony. That's why we ended up paying nearly 90 million for him, because it was reported that they thought he would have to do a lot to cut it in the Premier League, and they were actually ended up being right on that. But Ten Hag insisted. But what the difference is with the new recruitment team, they won't just bow down. They will stand firm. We bowed down. Also, I don't think the recruitment team were a big fan of Amrabat. Ten Hag really pushed for Amrabat. So there's been areas behind the scenes where things haven't been on the same page. Ten Hag needs a recruitment team where they are on the same page as him and they are working together. And that doesn't mean just go for all of Ten Hag's targets that he wants and that he comes up with, like an Anthony or an Amrabat or whoever he decides to go for. That means that Ten Hag, the sporting director and the recruitment team, know the profiles that Ten Hag wants, the style of play. What does he want them to be? Both footed? Does he want them to be good on the ball? Does he want them to be a big aerial presence? Does he want them to be quick, agile? They have all of the profiles evaluated and they go through it detail by detail. So when Ten Hag does want a player, like he wants a centre-back, he says, I really like the look of Todibo from Nice. He's good on the ball, he's aggressive, he can cover the right flank. And Man United would say, you know what, he's exactly the type of player that we've also scouted for you. And we can do it in terms of the financial side of things as well. That's great. Or when Ten Hag comes along and says, you know, I want Anthony from Ajax, for example, if it was happening now. I want someone who's great on the left foot, cutting inside, someone who can hold up the ball. I've worked with him before, he's got the right mentality characteristics, that's the player I want. And they go, well, actually, Erik, we've looked at him and based on his numbers and based on his profile, we actually don't think he'd be a good fit for the Premier League. But here's other right wingers that we've scouted that are great on the left foot, are inverted wingers, a good financial option and we think would suit you. That's what needs to happen. So Ten Hag can absolutely work with the new organisation and the new sporting organisation at Manchester United. They've just got to be on the same page. But I think the page is that they want to help build Erik Ten Hag a team that's going to be able to play a fluid, attacking style of football. Ten Hag wants to work with youth. That's a big check in Man United's book. So especially with Dan Ashworth working with youth before and the new target, Jason Wilcox being targeted from Man City. He was at Man City, he's now at Southampton, but he's had great experience in youth before. So I think it'll work all together. I really do. But it's just whether Ten Hag gets given that chance and opportunity. JF says, why can't we just loan Todibo and then buy him till next season if he does well? It's not as simple as that. Even though Sir Jim obviously owns Nice, it's just not as simple as asking for a loan, unfortunately, and plus the January transfer window has gone by now. But get in the comments, how are you feeling about Sir Jim? Because I know a lot of you guys were a little bit reluctant to get on board with this, but I'm one that doubted him, but he's proven a lot of people wrong. He's making moves. I'm very happy so far. So Ten Hag gets asked on the new arrival of, I've done that one. He says, I'm working with others. We've spoken about that. But then he also gets asked if you will have input into the new appointments. I mean, highly doubt that would happen. And it's a bit of a strange question, but it's also a question where, you know what, you get to see a little bit of insight into it. So interesting stuff. He says, I don't know anything about changes. I talk with a new sporting organisation, but it's not up to me. I am working and my focus point at the moment is on the team. We plan in this construction, what we have in the club and for the future. We have a look and now the window is closed in January. We are working on plans for the summer. So again, that's just business as usual, like we've already been told from the club. Business as usual. Ten Hag isn't going to have an input. Ten Hag's not going to be, ringing up Sir Jim being like, you know what, who I fancy as sporting director. You know who I fancy as the new head of recruitment. It just doesn't work like that because Ten Hag might not end up being the manager. I hope he is. But Sir Jim is employing people for a long-term project at Manchester United. And he doesn't want these positions to change if the manager changes. Ten Hag, I want him to be manager. I want him to have a great rest of the end of the season and go into the summer and work with the new recruits. But if they were asking Ten Hag for input, I don't think Sir Jim or INEOS are absolutely nailed on that he's going to be manager next season anyway. I think there's a good chance he will be, and I hope he is. But it would be silly to kind of consult Ten Hag on them appointments. We just should be going best in class, and that's it. and that's the way we've seemed to be going for things so far. Anyway, so will Sir Jim make a difference at Manchester United is in the poll. I mean, for me, he already is making a difference, but again, we've got to see these things play out and we've got to see it for ourselves happen. Update on Shaw, people are asking, start the show. We spoke about this. Ten Hag said he was a doubt, but they're positive and they hope that he can be back, so interesting. Pillin Elite says, Beth, if there's one thing you could change now at the club, what would it be? The recruitment department, and that is what Sir Jim's changing. I think, like Ten Hag just spoke about, recruitment is so vitally important in football. It's huge. It's been huge in Pep's resurgence of Manchester City. It's been huge for Liverpool. I mean, look at the Van Dijk and Alisson signings, how much of a pinnacle they were for Liverpool. It's huge. Arteta and Arsenal, it's been huge. It honestly is huge in football recruitment, and we have got it wrong for so long, and it's hindered us massively. So recruitment is massive for me. But yeah, that was Ten Hag in his press conference, and I thought there were some good questions in there. I'd like to hear a little bit more about... I'd love someone to ask him a question about providing for Rasmus and whether the wingers are instructed to shoot upon opportunity or have been instructed to cross into the box more, and the lack of service for Rasmus, whether that's something that Ten Hag wants Rasmus to be, helping out and facilitating his wingers, or whether he actually wants the wingers to be crossing more and putting more good passes in the box for Rasmus. And you'd like to think he does, but it's a question I'd love him to get asked in a press conference. I really would. Because even though Rasmus has picked up really good form and he's on fire right now, he's still not getting the right amount of service that he should be getting. He's getting better, but it needs to improve. So I would like to hear that in the next press conference, to be honest with you. But just a little bit of news to cover as well before we finish off the show, and there's actually quite a bit of news. So get strapped in, get a cup of tea and have a sip of it. So, coming from The Telegraph, that Manchester United are also looking at another role for an executive who would work between United and INEOS's French League One side, Nice, on recruitment and squad planning. I mean, this is crazy. It's not crazy because it's crazy because it's how do I put it? It's crazy to me because it's so logical. And Man United don't do logical things. I'm not used to it. It is such a good thing to happen that it's crazy to me because we don't usually make good things or good appointments because we're used to the Glazer ownership. But Sir Jim, again, to have someone working between the League One side, Nice, and Manchester United would be great for us. It would be great for us. Does that mean Nice turns into a little bit of our feeder club? Does it mean we recruit talent at Nice that is, from all over different leagues for very small fees and build them up at Nice and then bring them to Manchester United when they're ready? And if they don't work, then, we can, sell them from Nice onto different clubs. And I'm not saying Nice should be a tester club. Nice are a fully fledged working club in League One that want to compete, and I'm sure that'll continue, but no disrespect to them, they're not of the level of Manchester United. So could that be a situation where you do have, you've got a multi-club model and we're going to be breeding talent through the Nice Academy, breeding talent that we've scouted from loads of different leagues, in South America, in Europe, and bringing unknown players in and building them out through Nice and giving the opportunity in League One, and then looking at them in terms of Manchester United. It could be great for our recruitment. It really could. So that's something that I think is massively exciting. EZB says it would be great because Sir Jim can develop them and United could poach them. Well, Sir Jim himself wouldn't be doing it, but Nice could develop future talents for us. And if they do end up being to the scale of what we would want them to be, they could then end up coming to Manchester United. And if they don't work out, then, it's not something that Nice it's easier to be able to move these players on from a club like Nice than Manchester United. So I think it's huge in terms of future success of recruitment. And like I keep banging on about, recruitment is huge. It's massive in football and we've been getting it all wrong. This could be the turning point. Glennie says, seems Ashworth negotiations are underway with all news coming out with the people working under him might come first instead of caving to demand. Yeah, Glennie, we're going to talk about that as well in terms of Ashworth and what he's going to bring with him And will the people he wants to bring in come first before Ashworth, and are we going to pay the compensation? I've got news on that as well. So, and moving on to that, we'll move on to something I really wanted to get into, and it's coming from David Ornstein, hugely reliable journalist. And it's come out recently, and I'm sure you'll have seen it if you've been on socials. If you've not, let me tell you. Manchester United are working on a deal to appoint Jason Wilcox, Southampton's sporting director, to the club, in which he could report to the new director of football, who we are thinking is going to be Dan Ashworth. A formal approach is yet to be made, but Wilcox is aware of the interest. Now, first of all, I want to say, only at Manchester United would you have a step-by-step news and process and excitement about bringing in a head of recruitment, a recruitment executive, or a sporting director, and that's why we love this club. We love it. We're so invested in everything, and we're the biggest club in the league. We are. And that's why we can attract all these players. One of the biggest clubs in the world. And I've been reminded recently of United still has that factor. It still has that sparkle. It still has that pull factor. Even though we've been running to the ground, we still have it. And Sir Jim's bringing it back. I've called it the sleeping giant. So Jason Wilcox, if you don't know much about him. Jason Wilcox was Manchester City's academy director until 2023, and we all know how well Manchester City's academy's developed and how much money and effort and time that Sheikh Mansour has put into that in order to develop it. And Jason Wilcox was the academy director of that until 2023, when he started working at Southampton's senior team. City were very keen on keeping him, but he ultimately ended his 9-year stay with them. He is very highly regarded among those at Manchester United. Again, it's just so exciting. And Flavio makes a good point. Is Wilcox going to replace Murto then? Well, it's interesting because we heard that story about Sir Alex Ferguson recommending Dan Ashworth to Manchester United when he left Brighton to go to Newcastle. And Arnold approached, and apparently Dan Ashworth didn't want to come and work with Murto. And again, I don't want to hate on anyone, but Murto's just not good enough, and we've heard that. We've heard that through many different sources. I've spoke to people that, obviously I won't name them, but have said, Murto is kind of laughed at a little bit in the footballing world when it comes to negotiating and doing transfers, and that's why we've had terrible deals. Okay, we've signed some decent players under Murto, a few. We've signed some bad ones as well, but we've always overpaid. So yeah, I think Murto will be moved on. I think he'll stay at the club, but I just think he'll move into a different role, something that isn't to do with the serious decisions regarding transfers and recruitment. So that was interesting that Dan Ashworth, it was reported, didn't really want to work with Murto. He wanted the sporting director job himself, and I think that says a lot about Dan Ashworth as well. And also, it says a lot about the pull that Sir Jim and Sir Dave Brailsford have kind of brought into the club, that with them speaking to Dan Ashworth and offering him the full sporting director role and having them connections to him, it's enticed him a lot more and he wants to come. But on Jason Wilcox, obviously, City's academy director, these are a few players that have kind of come up through City's academy under Jason Wilcox. Phil Foden, Rico Lewis, Oscar Bob, Cole Palmer. They are some of the notable names who have developed through Man City's youth system during Jason Wilcox's time as the academy director. Again, this excites me massively. All them players are huge, huge prospects. Carrington is already doing well right now. We've had Garnacho, we've had Mainu. The talents in Carrington are looking really exciting right now. Imagine adding another player into that team behind the scenes that has had experience with developing excellent youth prospects into senior football before. It only makes us stronger and it only makes us better. So it's exciting. Of course, he moved on from City to work with the senior team at Southampton, and I assume he will work with the senior team at Manchester United, but I'm sure a lot of the team behind the scenes, Dan Ashworth, we talked about on the show yesterday, his model is the cohesion across youth teams all the way up to the first team. So it will be working all hand in hand with each other as a cohesive unit. But this is a little bit of a downside to me, is that Manchester United are prepared to wait to bring in Dan Ashworth in rather paying a substantial compensation fee. So we got told the compensation fee would be around 6 million. I'm going to be honest, that upsets me a little bit. They're doing great work right now and we're getting linked to great people, but we need to plan for the summer now. We need our sporting director in now. I don't want to wait on Dan Ashworth. 6 million, like I spoke about yesterday, is pocket change when it comes to Sir Jim and the money he has. And also in terms of the amount of money we've overspent and wasted on unsuccessful transfers. Dan Ashworth will save us money in the transfer window, many transfer windows to come. He'll save us that when it comes to deals and players. So 6 million, you could pay 6 million now. Okay, yeah, it's a substantial fee in terms of getting a sporting director in, and yeah, it's overpriced for bringing a sporting director in, but you're going to save that in the summer on overpaying for players and also just getting his knowledge in and getting him to work and planning for the summer. I think it's vitally important. I think it's worth 6 million. So I would just buy him out. That's my personal opinion. But he then says there is a chance that Jason Wilcox arrives in Manchester United before Dan Ashworth. The one thing I would say is I think Jason Wilcox is definitely someone that probably Dan Ashworth's recommended to INEOS and Sir Jim. They've probably made the decision themselves in terms of Jason Wilcox being a great person to bring in. They've probably scouted and looked around, but they have great connections, and Dan Ashworth would definitely have input onto this. Jason Wilcox arriving is huge, and he will obviously be that Dan Ashworth's like second-hand man. He will report to Dan Ashworth. That's what David Ornstein's reporting here. So it's good to have him in early doors, and he'll probably be in communication with Ashworth. But you don't want to get on the situation where Dan Ashworth's supposed to be on gardening leave, and you know the legal kind of complications with this. I just think it's best to buy him out personally. And this is something that I picked up on, and I saw somebody talk about this. I'm not going to take the credit for it because I saw somebody talk about this when I was looking across my trusted people who they're just fans, but they always do the research and they create different sort of threads on Twitter and stuff like that. So I won't take the credit for it. But he said that he looked at Michael Olise, who obviously Man United are massively linked to at the moment, and they looked at his youth career, and Jason Wilcox was City's academy director during the time that Michael Olise was at City from 2016 to 2017. So I just find that really interesting that Wilcox will, when he comes into the club, will already be able to have a gauge of Michael Olise's character, his personality. Of course, it was a long time ago now. I mean, when was 16, 17 now? How many years ago was that? It's like near enough 8 years ago. It's a long time ago, and Olise's obviously, his character will have changed, and we've all changed since then, and he will have developed, but someone who knows how he was then and has that link and connection to him, I think it's only a positive that's the case, and it's just a complete coincidence. But I've got to say, the one negative is I think we should be buying Dan Ashworth out. That's my personal opinion. I think it's worth it in the long run. But the positives is bringing Jason Wilcox in, somebody who's worked under an academy that has flourished in the past decade while he has been there, and and has created some names in football that have moved into senior football. I mean, Cole Palmer's doing brilliantly at Chelsea. Phil Foden's just world class. Rico Lewis and Oscar Bob look like great prospects. And of course, Pep is huge on making these players the way that they are. But to have someone who's been involved in this as well, it's important to have the executive that's working between INEOS. INEOS is League One side in Nice and Man United, and creating that club where you can develop talent and work in cohesion with recruitment. It's all just like ticks across the board, apart from the buying out Dan Ashworth. I hope we do that. But that's a little bit of news added to Erik ten Hag's press conference. I thought I would update you and bring you my opinions on that. Let me just get the polling quickly. I mean, will Sir Jim make a difference at United? I think it's like asking me if the sky's blue. Is Beth wearing a pink cardigan today? Yeah, he's going to. Anyone's going to make a difference over what the Glazers have done, and what he's doing so far is exceeding my expectations, and long may it continue. Drewby Fergus says, in a perplexing display of spatial dissonance. Okay then, Drewby, thank you for that. I don't know what that means. I might be being silly, but thank you. And the one thing I would say is I was getting a lot of people saying to me, quickly before I end the show, because I've probably gone over here, I had a lot of people saying to me, Beth, you know, you're so easily pleased with Sir Jim. Oh, United fans being easily pleased again. And I'm like, God forbid I am a United fan that has suffered under the Glazer ownership for years. an ownership that has continually run us into the ground, made wrong decision after wrong decision, been a soap opera and a circus with terrible news coming out, the wrong appointments, having bankers in football positions. God forbid I get excited about somebody that's come into the club and is immediately trying to do what's right and putting in place action and being proactive and getting Omar Barada from City, getting Dan Ashworth from Newcastle, getting Jason Wilcox from Southampton, who's got a great background, and getting the best in class. Of course I'm going to be pleased by that. Of course I'm going to be excited by that. We've suffered for so long. Like, this is huge for us as Man United fans. So I'm going to be excited, and I hope it continues, and I hope it ends up leading us to being back to being a serious club where we can compete. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's the start of something. Like I said, if you were watching the show yesterday, it's beginning the marathon. It's getting your trainers on and starting the run. We've not done that. So thank you everyone for watching. Hit a like on the video if you're excited for this Luton game. I mean, I'm super excited for it. Thursday press conferences, I quite like them actually. Get in the comments all your opinions on Sir Jim. Jason Wilcox, we'll do more research on him, but that's the brief that's coming out right now. And just all your thoughts on Ten Hag, on Luke Shaw. Are you worried about his injuries? Are you worried about Malacia and Mount? What are your thoughts on the game plan going into Sunday? Are you nervous that we're going to kind of underestimate this one? Let me know all your comments and thoughts. Have a lovely Thursday, everyone. I really do appreciate all the community in the chat and all your comments. I'm excited. Thank you, everyone, and I will see you on the next one.